And yeah, should I wait a couple of minutes before?
You're on.
It looks like we've got a number of people in the room already. Maybe we'll wait just one more minute, David, before we get started.
Yep.
So I know I asked you to do it, but I'll just mention ahead of time to everyone that we are recording, just in case we others want to view the webinar at a later date. We will make it available. And just to introduce who we are here before we get formally commence, we do have a screen that will showcase who we are initially, but I'll just introduce David Gengel, who was the consultant on this project with his company, Civil Sciences and Engineering. And he'll start taking us through it. I think at this point we've got a number of people that have joined. Maybe we'll just wait one more minute and then we'll get started, David, if that's all right.
Yep.
All right, I think we should kick it off in the interest of time here.
Yep. We've had enough time. Join. Yep. Right. So hello everyone. My name's David Gangel and I'll be discussing and presenting the WALGA Road Visual Condition Assessment manual webinar today. And this is in relation to version 2 updates, which have been progressing over the last 12 to 18 months now. And the
Hold on.
version.
Sorry, it sounds like there's no sound, which is strange. Can someone give me a thumbs up if they can hear? Anybody hear anything? It looks like a few people do have sound. Okay, maybe it might be a setting on your local setting. It looks like most people have sound. Sorry. So if you just go ahead, David. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries. Always some technical difficulties. So yeah. Anyway, I'll be presenting the webinar today on the version 2, which is due to be released and live as of a couple of weeks' time, start of September.
So just some clarity on that one. We have actually released the document on our website, but the changes to the RAM database in the backend will go live on the 1st of September. But you can kind of foreshadow those changes by having a look at the work on the website.
Yep. So just a quick intro on the panel today. See myself, so Managing Director and Civil Engineer of Civil Sciences and Engineering, who've been engaged by WALGA for this the commissioning of this update. And then in the room we've got Mark, Max and Graham from WALGA. They've all been involved in the process, particularly Mark and Max for the 12 to 18 months that it's been developing, and then Graham in a bit more of the recent sense has come on board as well. So they'll be available at the end for the Q&A, and Max will handle that. So any questions, as Max touched on previously, but for anyone who's joined a little bit later on, questions shall be answered at the end, and add these into the chat, and the meeting will also be recorded. I'll just hand over to Mark now to give a little bit of the WALGA context before I get into things in more detail.
Thank you, David, and thank you everyone for attending this webinar. I see we have over 50 people in attendance, which certainly demonstrates the importance of the subject in the sector. So version 1 of this document was published back in 2016, and you know, the advantages of having a consistent approach to the way road condition data is collected and assessed has many, many advantages. And two in particular, it allows us to evaluate the network condition at a regional and state level, and it's a great benefit to advocate for funding for road maintenance and renewal, amongst many other advantages, of course. And I think we are the only state that actually has this approach, so I think we're quite fortunate in that regard. So over the years, as everyone knows, the technologies available to collect and to do road condition surveys has advanced dramatically in recent years. And I think the days of getting out of your car with a straight edge and measuring ruts is probably long gone. And that, coupled with that we did find some issues in the old manual that needed correction, and those two issues really initiated this need to do a review of the manual. And we kicked that off with a survey a couple of years ago, and we got quite a lot of feedback from local governments during that process. And that led to us appointing Civil SE to manage the review process. And along the way, we've had, I think, at least 2 workshops with stakeholders as the review has progressed. So one of the principles, we've been very careful not to change the fundamentals of the road condition assessment methodologies, and that's to ensure that historic data is still compatible with the new processes that we've changed in the document, and that was really important. David will talk a bit further about that further on. And just finally, I'd like to just give credit to Audrey Depina, our administration officer, who was responsible for the graphics and the formatting of the document, which I think looks very good indeed. So thank you, and I'll pass back to David.
Thanks, Mark. So firstly, to give everyone an understanding of what's going to be discussed in today's session. So I will start by giving some information on the background and framework. So that'll touch on the version 1 manual, the scope and how version 2 was approached, and exactly what the intention of the update was. The assessment practice, so getting into some of the details around data collection, the use of AI, detailing a bit of the QA and inspector calibration, as well as the treatment length definitions and terminologies. Defect assessment updates, so there'll be, I'll outline how some of the defect definitions have been tweaked more so. So as Mark touched on, there's no fundamental changes with this update, but there are sort of little tweaks and improvements that have been made to make it more practical for local government usage, and that does include some realignment with some rating thresholds and measurement methods to bring it up to, I guess, current standards and practices. Roughness assessment will also be discussed. So this is one of the main additions to the version 2. So I'll go through how or what this assessment looks like and how it can be integrated and the practical application of that. Condition indices. So these were already part of version 1, but again, there's been some more minor updates to these and just making sure things align. There were a few inconsistencies that were picked up from feedback gathered from the version 1 manual, which these have been rectified and clarified in the update. And then we'll finish with the Q&A hopefully have some good discussions about any and all of the aspects. So touching firstly on version 1 to provide a bit of a baseline, like I already said, a lot of the fundamentals of this still remain and have been carried through to version 2. So this was initially developed by ARB for WALGA back, 10 years ago now. And for the most part, it's done a very good job. It's established a consistent framework for network level assessments and provided that standardization around defect identification and extent and severity ratings, and also their condition indices. So it's been largely well adopted by local governments over this period of time. And I guess that's part of the reason why there was keen interest and quite a bit of engagement and feedback throughout this update, because it's widely recognised and known to be well used. So some of the main things that we right from the start wanted to preserve with this update was essential. The most essential, I guess, was the compatibility with the RAM databases, which is now, I think, Project Asset and Work Manager is the name they now go by. So yeah, we certainly didn't want to make wholesale changes or anything that would render any historic or past data unusable. So we were very careful and considered with the changes made, and where there have been adjustments to ratings and any of the I guess more sort of getting to a bit more of the detailed and the nuance aspects of the specific defects where these changes have been made or tweaked. We've made sure there is a process of being able to convert any past and historic data to make sure it is still usable. So then that'll be something to touch on in a bit more detail later on. And yeah, basically the third point already mentioned as well, just the targeted improvements, and a lot of this was formed off the basis of the feedback that WALGA had collected over a couple of years, which Mark already mentioned. So yeah, the feedback from probably a lot of the people that are listening in today has largely driven these updates and changes. Some of these key changes to touch on, a lot of them are, or a few that you'll see there are just sort of more visually, and things like updating photos and images to have a clearer understanding of, or to form the baseline of what different severities shall be considered, and to provide that consistency between inspectors. There was, I guess, a lot of the images and photos in version 1, there was feedback on not that clarity that's needed to be able to form that baseline assessment in terms of being consistent between inspectors. And then that's also just improving the readability and clarity on some of the aspects within it. There's been a number of wording changes, and I guess simplifying some of the language anyway for for it to be much more user-friendly. Integration of modern data capture technologies. So yeah, this was quite a big one. I'll go into more detail on this, but obviously an emerging space, and particularly the development of automation and AI is now something that the manual is or it's able to accommodate. We'll also go into some detail about the additions of inspector calibration and training guidance. So again, this was something that was lacking in version 1 and giving some a better framework and guidance on how to achieve the consistency of the inspections. And as I've already mentioned, for roughness, I'll go into detail on that later on, as well as some of the adjustments that are made to the inspection rating bands, and then how these have been updated to align with or how the previous I guess inconsistencies between the condition indices and the defect ratings. So these have been updated as part of this. So to get into now more of the detail of the scope of the manual and the framework of this. So this is all consistent with version 1, but probably important to note here, there was quite a bit of a feedback for the update of version 2, which was essentially beyond what is reasonable for a assessment or condition assessment manual. So yeah, I guess important to state what the actual purpose of the manual is, and that's really fundamentally to be able to carry out network level condition assessments. It's to cover sealed and unsealed local government roads. Visual defect assessment plus standalone roughness is now the way it's been adapted and grown into. And then also, I guess, fundamentally the real purpose of the inspections and doing the assessments is to be able to prioritize maintenance and the long-term asset planning around that. So this SNP here that's shown is now included in the manual, and that it's been added to provide upfront clarity on how or where things sort of align to. So there wasn't previously a clear understanding of what defects relate to what aspects and how this sort of integrates with one another, but also separate in the sense of roughness is its own assessment methodology. And there's also now the addition of the unsealed condition index, which previously there was nothing in this space for the unsealed network. The 3 condition indices under the sealed roads have remained unchanged in the fundamental aspect. So for treatment lengths, this was certainly an area that had quite a lot of feedback on from version 1, and just being able to have a better definition of what treatment length or how a treatment length is defined, but also when to split it. So obviously the treatment length is the essential and the basic unit of where, or the starting point for any condition assessment. So without proper delineation and determination of these treatment lengths, then your data is going to be a lot less useful, as opposed to having the treatment lengths clearly defined and accurate from the beginning. So the manual now gives much more detail around when split should be made. So you can see here for well, I guess firstly it's for giving just a general definition of treatment length. So continuous road section that performs broadly, uniformly, and would reasonably receive the same treatment across its length. And that leads into when where a split where a sustained change. So some of the key things, I guess, to look out for of when that split should be made are listed in the manual. Surface condition, pavement structure or surfacing, carriageway width, road environment, surfacing history, major features, and then also the importance of not over segmentation. So for features that don't have a sustained change in performance, things like speed bumps, pedestrian refuge, paving sections and service trenches, those things typically don't warrant a treatment change. So for data collection methods, version 1 was solely set up around the manual visual inspections, which is obviously quickly becoming outdated, and certainly there's still an aspect of that holds true, but more and more it's a hybrid approach that's taken, and obviously moving further and further away from the traditional manual inspections. So the wording and the overall approach that version 2 outlines is now much more inclusive of things like video-based capture, as well as more of the automation and AI integration, which I'll touch on more soon. And it's I guess particularly for the video-based capture, which is effectively been used for obviously a number of years now. So version 1 was quite outdated in that space, and there wasn't that guidance on what should be, or how these should be carried out, and particularly sort of the validation that's required, and ensuring that there is still the aspect of human review and intervention when it comes to AI usage, which touched on more here. So the manual now gives 2 high-level approaches, but it is emphasised that AI is obviously an emerging and rapidly developing area. The intent of version 2 is not to provide an all-encompassing technical standard or anything that's going to be or should be solely relied upon for AI usage. The purpose is just to provide that assistance, and then the putting the onus back on the individual and the organisation to ensure that there are the sufficient guardrails and principles in place to get that validation. So, and the repeatability in those sorts of things. So we've outlined a 2-level approach. So where it is just level 1 being still a large human aspect. So AI can, it's a lower risk application. So AI can identify or measure potential defects, but a person remains, or human remains, in the loop to review and confirm the important calls. So it'd be something like AI might identify likely cracking or potholes across the network and significantly reduce the manual workload, but ultimately the outputs is still subject to human verification. And then level 2, which has more AI output, which is accepted directly into the condition assessment and potentially into condition index calculations. So this is, certainly where there needs to be the or where validation is key. and you can't simply rely on the supplier saying that the system is 90 or 95% accurate. You need to understand what that accuracy means and what defects were tested, what roads it was tested on, and whether those conditions represent your network. So yeah, it's I guess quite detailed or thorough that, in terms of the level that needs, or the validation level that needs to go into it once you get to those or that degree. But the general premise anyway of the update is just to at least open up that discussion and have these things in place. I suspect level 1 will be where a lot of the initial usage is, and yeah, as it emerges and things change, then I dare say there'll be another update which will continue to move with the times and make sure it's up with the latest technology and the capabilities of AI. So for quality assurance, so bringing it back a bit more onto the human aspect. So this was largely lacking in version 1, and there was quite a bit of feedback on having better assessment or better framework anyway for what's required in the QA sense. So obviously the initial planning is vital, defining survey scope and understanding what your required metadata is, and establishing those quality checks certainly set you up for a more successful survey. And the validation is something that we've outlined further with how, or I guess, checking for data errors and any inconsistencies, and having those guardrails in place to ensure there is that level of validation that's done. But for calibration, we have detailed what that, giving, I guess, enough detail anyway to provide the guidance, but still flexible for what suits best the team and depending on the specific circumstances. But there are things that are recommended for internal training. So for new inspectors, short induction covering defect definitions, measurement methods, data entry procedures, and safety as well. And importantly, the photos in the manual should now be used as a common calibration benchmark. So there has been the time that's been put into having the photos on knowing that the intention of the photos in the manual is now used for this calibration benchmark. So that should certainly assist in the training of inspectors. Cross audits is another one. I'd recommend at least annually 2 or more inspectors should independently assess the same treatment lengths. If ratings differ by more than 1 band, the aim is not simply to average the results, but it's the inspectors should review the sites together and agree why the differences occurred, to ensure that there is the ongoing consistency between inspectors. And that there's an aspect of that that's also for benchmark sites. So without going into too much detail, the local government could have specific benchmark or gold standard sites, which give known examples, and then they're revisited each year, and inspectors are calibrated against the same reference and maintain as well. So just having a good or centralized data location and being able to have it audited and tracked sufficiently with version control and those sorts of things is obviously paramount as well. So getting into some of the tweaks or changes that have been made to some of the defects. So these first ones here are just in terms of definitions, so no actual changes in the way things are measured or scored. It's just this again was off the back of the feedback that that was received around some confusion of where defects should be categorized and how they should be. So yeah, some wording updates on patches and where they should be considered if they're successful, or a patch that is doing its intended purpose as opposed to a failed patch. Cracking, so structural and non-structural, was already separated out. There was just some confusion around the I guess how it was laid out in version 1 anyway, so making it a bit, having a clearer separation, and also giving some information around when unstable cracking, or when non-structural cracking, but in the unstable sense, and then that should be essentially bumped up to a structural level. Surface deficiencies as well, just giving a bit of clear understanding of the differences between things like potholes and delaminations, and when the base course is exposed, and how those that defect would be classified under a pothole, and again the photos that are in the manual now provide clarity on that. And then local surface defects as well. The few minor wording changes have also been implemented. So some of the actual ratings that have been changed in the numerical sense are the ones listed here. So pavement undulations, non-structural cracking, surface deficiencies, and unsealed defects. The extents of these have been adjusted. You can see what they were in version 1 and now what they're updated to in version 2. And the basis of these was, or I guess the determination of these changes was on the basis of reviewing a number of recently collected data sources and having the understanding of what typically would or at what level or at what extent intervention should occur at, and based on the data that's been collected at a few or within a few sample local governments, essentially these were the revised rating bands to better reflect what that looks like. So yeah, there's the biggest one where there's the pavement undulations, but yeah, largely it brings things into alignment with when those intervention or when intervention is typically undertaken. So for the measurement methods, a lot of it, or most of them have remained unchanged from version 1, but the couple that have changed are listed here. So rutting, which is still something that is often done a bit more in the visual sense, and obviously being able to pick up rutting to the nearest millimetre is challenging, and there was, I guess, the hesitation or uncertainty around being able to record rutting to the nearest millimetre, whether that is by visual eye or by the different technologies that are available. It was deemed that having it to or rounding it to the nearest 5 millimetres is a more practical approach, and should ensure better consistency and uniformity. Surface deficiencies. So this was a category that was identified as often being overinflated for things like flushing and minor ravelling as well, which would often those defects can be in a minor sense, but run for a long length. And those were somewhat artificially giving a higher overall condition index than what was deemed, what was considered as warranted. So there's been a change in surface deficiencies and how those are now measured to rectify some of that, and also curb defects. So that's been a bit more streamlined as well, with curb height ultimately a factor in the functional aspect of the curbing and its ability to do its intended role. So it's now, curb height is considered within the severity measurement, that is. So for unsealed roads, so previously this was not something that had been too well outlined in version 1, and there was quite a bit left up to the user to assess and determine, and there certainly still is that flexibility in the manual, knowing that unsealed roads can change, the condition can change rapidly, and obviously a lot of the rural local governments have very large networks, and still needing to be able to apply a practical and pragmatic basis to these assessments has been retained. It's just been more, I guess, guidance that is now been given on all three of the unsealed defects. So for the unsealed surface defects, the extent range has been expanded. So previously this was in line with the sealed surface defects, but I guess, coming back to that bit more practical approach that you typically expect an unsealed road to be or not have the same threshold for intervention anyway. So the extent range has been expanded to better align with unsealed conditions. And then the unsealed shape, there hasn't really been any change to that, just a description and further information added around what is or when a unsealed shape is very good all the way through to very poor. Previously it was lacking a description of what that actually looks like in terms of the crown height and the crossfall of the road. There wasn't that level of guidance, and certainly still one that needs to be considered on a network sort of basis of what is adequate for that local government and the traffic usage and application of the road. But there is now this additional information that will certainly form the basis of making that assessment. And then the depth of base was one that had also previously been a bit unclear in the sense of, for an unsealed road, in the case of it not being a gravel surface, so essentially a formed or unformed road, and when that's the case, a rating of 0 should be applied in terms of not applicable, rather than being considered as very poor. And a 5, it's needing to have that understanding of what the formation of the road is and what cross section it should be assessed under. So in the sense of it's just formed or unformed, the depth of base becomes not applicable. And in the case of it being a gravel sheeted road, then you apply your 1 to 5, and in the case of the sheeting layer significantly worn away, that would be when a level 5 is applied, or a rating 5 as opposed to a not applicable level, because ultimately it's intended to be a gravel sheeted road. So for addition of roughness now, to go through some of the or how the roughness assessment is now incorporated in. So it's the International Roughness Index, IRI. This can be used for sealed and unsealed road. Essentially, it measures ride quality, longitudinal profile. So it is there to complement the visual condition assessment. It's useful for network screening and identifying sections needing review. So it's a separate assessment. It doesn't this data doesn't feed into the condition indices. It's something that can certainly be both can be carried out, and then depending on the local government constraints and requirements, it could also be used as the initial screening tool, and then following the assessment of those roughness results, a more targeted assessment could be carried out on the locations where it's warranted. And we've given some bit of guidance or outlined what the measurement of this looks like. So the vehicle mounted inertial laser profilers are typically used, and outlining a bit of the specifics around what's reported and how this information is essentially exported from or once testing's complete, and also the importance of the data that does need to be captured to be able to ensure that it is usable information, and having that collaboration and the verification is still paramount, and having an awareness of when there may be, I guess, inconsistencies, or there things like, especially for urban environments where different road features, speed bumps, and service trenches and those sorts of things can artificially inflate the roughness assessment or the roughness scoring. So still needing to have the understanding of what's potentially causing those higher values, and then there's the advantage of being able to essentially, you typically look at the data firstly in 100-meter segments, but then where there was something that was potentially flagged as an inconsistency, you can then go back and break it down into shorter intervals, say 10 meters, and you can get a better understanding if it is I guess, if the entire treatment length is genuinely rough and in need of further assessment, or if it is just a localized feature or aspect that's caused an artificially high value. And as part of that as well, we've given some indicative ratings. So again, there's the importance of adapting these to your network and what's most suited. But there is some guidance on what should be, I guess, as a starting point for what's considered good, fair, and poor. These have been developed from the basis of Austroad's information, but then specific WA conditions have been considered, and I guess those values have then been adopted to suit generally the state of WA, but obviously with the vast or the size of the state and how much things can vary, it's hard to have a one number sort of fits all. So there is certainly the need to apply further assessment to these and adjust as required. So yeah, I think some of the other stuff I've already touched on in there anyway, but most useful on the higher speed corridors, but it still can be, if the data is correctly interpreted, then it can still be useful on some of the lower speed roads. It's only the really low speed, so once you're below 15 kilometers sort of thing, and also any sharp or heavy braking and accelerating will have an impact on the results. But yeah, ultimately, someone who's trained to do these assessments should be able to provide a pretty comprehensive assessment for further consideration. So getting into the condition index or indices, and again, a lot hasn't changed from version 1, particularly all the indices for sealed roads. So that still remains as the surface condition index, the pavement condition index, and the drainage. So those remain the same, and it's the same defects that feed into each one of these. But we've just provided a bit more clarity on how the defects link back to the indices, and what it actually looks like in a holistic sense. And the new one that has been added is the unsealed. So the UCI. Previously, there was a gap in this. There wasn't anything formally in place for unsealed roads. There was certainly
Perhaps David is experiencing some internet issues. Hopefully he comes back on shortly.
Maybe us. Anyone raising a hand or putting a message up?
Is anyone else frozen currently?
So,
Yeah, looks like it's a David issue. All right, maybe I'll send him a brief message. Hopefully he can jump back on. Oh,
he's back.
There he's back. All right.
Sorry, David, we lost you for a while there.
sorry. Sorry, I thought I'd just take a break. You got me back. Sorry,
Yeah,
I've lost
I
my
think-
screen now.
Yeah.
You can't escape, David.
Let's get that back. Try this.
The joys of technology.
I think.
Please enjoy this momentary interruption. David will be back with us shortly.
Let's try this. That should be better. I'll go share the screen. Right,
There we go.
back on, I think. Sorry
Yeah.
about that, everyone.
Good.
Yes, so I just finished touching on the index frameworks anyway. So getting touching on a bit more of the specifics of some of the updates or changes that have been made for the condition indices. So this was something that was well noted by many, the inconsistency around what the definition of zero or a zero rating is. So I've given an example here. So on the left, version 1, and on the right, version 2. So you'll see the top tables, which is just the the defect ratings, there's been no change there, and 0 is used where that defect's not applicable. But then you'll see in the bottom tables, which is where the confusion arose. So here the bottom left from version 1 is what was deemed for a condition index of very good. It was previously between 0 and 1. So obviously that misalignment with understanding what 0 actually means. So that's been updated to now reflect basically the index bands to start from 1 and work up. So 1 reflecting, in this case, no area affected. So obviously there'd be no cracking and therefore in very good condition. And then going on from there through to 5, which gives you the very poor rating. So this, even though it's not a fundamental change in terms of maybe I'll just before moving on to that one. So even though it's not a change in the calculation as such, this obviously does result in a shift of condition indices essentially by 1 unit. So yeah, that is something that users need to be aware of. There is that shift, which just needs to be dealt with and needs to be considered. But ultimately, the rating in terms of very good through to very poor will still be the same. It's just what number, or in terms of the condition index band, what number or what range it falls within. There will be that change. So for this one, just giving some, I guess using an example here anyway of the process from defect or from measuring or recording a defect through to condition index. And this one, there isn't anything really too much change from version 1, but it's just to demonstrate what the process looks like with a few of the the updates I've just spoken about previously. So yeah, even though they're not fundamental, they're just to have that clarity anyway of what the process looks like. So this is all outlined in the manual as well. So I won't these exact examples taken from the manual. So I won't go into too much detail, but it just sort of steps you through what, in this case, what rutting, the rutting procedure would look like, right from taking your values and applying your defect, or assigning your defect rating based off your number or your measurement to the nearest 5, rounded to the nearest 5 millimeters, and then stepping it through the process of ultimately determining your condition index based off your road hierarchy, and that's where the Appendix C curves come into play. And yeah, so that general process is certainly how, or no changes there anyway. And the same approach with the upper bound limit has been adopted. There was some discussion on different ways potentially to convert the defect rating into your condition index, noting that version 1 uses the upper bound limit. So I guess it's always more on the conservative side. So there was some discussion around potentially changing that, but with RAM's, or I think Project AWM's involvement, it was it was going to be too challenging to adopt. So that process has remained as per version 1. And then just finishing up, coming back to for the unsealed network, the fact that UCI has now been introduced to formally have a condition index for unsealed roads. So the formula is the exact same for the other as for the other indices, the advanced maximum method, which is all outlined in Appendix C with worked examples in Appendix D, and the real intention of this condition index is to support network level grading priorities, reshedding programs, and monitoring of unsealed road networks, noting that many of the local governments have very large unsealed networks. So having this, I've been able to apply this condition index should hopefully, or certainly the intention is to be able to give the local government a sort of quick and easy way of applying consistent and uniform approach to apply at a network screening sort of level, and being able to have the apply those prioritizations in that sort of sense is certainly the large premise of introducing this. And again, this example has just been taken from the manual, so yeah, I won't go into it too much, but you can see sort of the general process of the three inputs into the condition index, which is the unsealed surface defects, unsealed shape, and depth of base, and ultimately it carries through to a condition index of 3.3 and a interpretation of fair, which we then also provide some guidance on what that could, I guess, what the interpretation of the different conditions could mean in terms of maintenance and prioritisation. And then we'll leave it there. So that'll be it for today. And obviously, yeah, happy to answer any questions. And I think Max is going to largely deal with that. But yeah, more than happy to provide my input as well. So appreciate everyone for joining, and hopefully it's been informative. And apologies for the technology issue as well. But thanks very much.
Thanks, David. Yeah, really good. I think that gives everyone a bit of a sense of what we've done. Please put any questions in the meeting chat, and I'm happy to kind of read those out and get the appropriate person, whether David or Mark, to answer. I haven't gotten any yet. Getting a number of thank yous. So I'll maybe wait just a few more minutes. And note that the guide is available on our website. However, the changes have not yet occurred in the AWM, Think Project AWN Asset Works software. It is still, they're still working on that, but we have a go live date of the 1st of September. Rick Miller's asking, what is timing for formal issue? So maybe I think I've just given you that update. From Ali Hayder, will WALGA be doing a condition assessment of the regional road group roads again? That's a great question. We are currently looking at some options in that space. I mean, that was funded under the State Road Funds for Local Government Agreement. We did do every road of regional significance in all of the regions except for the metro region over the course of the last 5 years. That is something that we feel like had quite a bit of value for local governments. And we're looking into kind of the options of how to do that. And also importantly, we've brought Graham Lansky on to help us support the sector a bit more in kind of using that data effectively.
So yeah, just to add probably, so certainly we will be doing something.
Yeah.
We haven't quite agreed yet exactly what that will look like, and we will obviously inform everyone once we have finality on exactly what will be done.
Yeah.
Can we ask for a show of thumbs up if it was useful to you guys?
Yeah, did anyone ever use that data? It did go directly into AWM.
Yeah.
Got a few thumbs up there. So from Theo in Dardanup, how is this information going to transfer to consultants to ensure they use this new version? WALGA training?
as an ex-consultant, I can say the consultants will, well, I'm still a consultant, but the consultants will quickly pick up on that. Ideally, you would want to specify the collection method that you want used when you issue a tender or a request for a consultant to do the survey. If they're not aware of it, they'll quickly find the manual and learn how to do it.
And just to mention, there will be, I mean, it will be reflected in the kind of back end calculations in AWM. So it's really important that they do take this into consideration.
Yeah, so that's good. I mean, that's true. And so after the 1st of September, they will have, if you uploading data into AWS, then you'll have to use a new manual.
Yeah.
Because of the changes in the software.
I believe a lot of consultants contributed to this. David, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, there was. Yep. So the initial stakeholder consultation had consultants' input, and they were liaised with through the updates.
Any further questions? I think that's all that's come through at this point. Probably wait another minute or two. Okay, from Sandeep, will this be implemented this point onwards for reporting? So through AWM, as of the 1st of September, this will be the new method going forward. So in that sense, yes. We would highly recommend that you use this new version if you're programming any future condition surveys.
When you mention reporting, I'm not sure what you're referring to, but if you mean when you're applying for funding or other obligations around that. So I don't think any of them really say you have to use this methodology, but going forward,
yes,
things might change.
I think the only thing of immediate significance to you is going to be the main roads, regional road projects that do actually require in your project submissions that you report condition using the WALGA manual. So main roads is aware of this change and that will be tracked through. I'm not sure where we're at in the funding round. I think funding's just being called and closed for 27, 28. So there's probably about 12 months to start to make those changes with main roads and make sure that's up to date. But other than that, how you report the condition internally and use condition ratings internally is entirely at your discretion to suit your local government. We think this is a really good method, and if you use this method, you're using the standard and it's comparable if anyone does ask you to report.
Yep. So Francois is asking, our current condition assessment schedule doesn't include all the composite index measures. What is is there a transition time frame? So I think we've answered that there. You know, it will go live in the back end of AWM as of the 1st of September. We've released it. It's been the manual's been available, I believe, since the 30th of July. So we have given a little bit of a transition time frame. We hope to give more, but this is kind of how the revisions shook out and how our timeframes allowed. But again, I think the key takeaway from the changes were that they weren't. There were some significant changes, but they weren't so significant that it would require kind of a rethink of the entire methodology. So hopefully there isn't too much kind of pain in moving to this new method. Thinking if there's any other questions. That's all I've got so far. Maybe
Perhaps
if another minute or two. Yeah.
if anyone has any additional feedback or comments that they think of, please send them through. We'd be pleased to consider them. Probably not republishing the manual next week, but it's always useful.
No, look, yeah, happy to take feedback on the manual at any time. You know, it did take us a long time to get this one done, but that was for a number of different reasons. I think in the future, as things evolve and as particularly the kind of AI assessment tools become more sophisticated, there will be a need to look at this again. We have also published through our local government transport and roads research and innovation program. We've put out a report on road data collection technologies. So that's another useful resource. Again, everything's moving so quickly in that space. It's probably something we'll have to revisit again soonish. I'm not going to commit to exactly when, but as things change and if there's big technological shifts, then we'll have to obviously pivot to address those. So I'm not seeing any further questions come through. Again, as Graham said, please feel free to email us with any other questions, and we will also provide a recording of this session.
And the manual, of course, is on our website. If anyone's looking for it, you can download it from the WALGA website.
Thank you.
With that, I'll say thank you to David for the excellent presentation, and also to everyone for taking the time today. Hopefully this gets used, and again, feel free to send us any feedback. Thanks again.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much.